Good morning and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest. Morning is when I'm recording this. When you're watching it, I have no idea. During this digest, as promised, we are going to examine the new President of the United States, Joe Biden. We were going to do this exclusively with the digest, but we decided actually just to write up an article and post it to the site. But in the digest, we're going to go a bit more in depth than the article did. It's kind of interesting to see how people, react to the posts that we make, the tweets that we make. When we did the announcement of Donald Trump just a few weeks ago, when we were a little concerned that he was becoming concerned that the pressure was starting to get to him, we tweeted something like that out, and everybody just went absolutely crazy, and people were reacting to the headline. Most of the people who were screaming vitriol at us really didn't actually read the statement that we put out. This one, when we analyzed Joe Biden, we really didn't get much of a reaction because all the headline said was, actually, what did it say? It said what to expect from Joe Biden presidency. So it didn't have, because it didn't have that kind of grabby headline, not a whole lot of people reacted to it, which is kind of disappointing because we kind of want people to read what we put out there because what we put out there is important. But it's just interesting to see how people react to different headlines, because this one was kind of innocuous, what to expect, as opposed to Joe Biden is a slobbering idiot, or Joe Biden is one of the greatest people that the United States will ever see. Because it wasn't one of those headlines, people kind of didn't react to it, which again is kind of disappointing, because there's a lot of good information that we wish people would have seen, because it's going to help them evaluate for themselves how events are going to unfold over the next 4 years under Joe Biden presidency. The best way to know somebody the best way to know what somebody is going to do is to know who they are. So this is what we did in our article. See, every time the camera's on, I itch, but when the camera's not on, I don't itch at all. So as the United States inaugurates its new president, citizens are urged to examine the man under the new light he is exposed to. We do go into this a bit more into the article, so I will explain that rather strange statement. The DEFCON warning system, as is the case for every U.S. leader, has made its own analysis of Joe Biden. Normally, we keep these analysis internal, like I've said in other digests. We do this all the time because we have to know who the person is. We've done this with Putin. We do this with the leader of the Philippines, the leaders of China. And in China, we can look at the party more than we need to look at the person himself. With North Korea, we have to look at the person, see what kind of upbringing that he has. Does he, with North Korea, he kind of believes his own Feldercarb because this is what he's been exposed to all his life, even though Kim Jong-un has had more exposure outside North Korea. But, like I said, Kim Jong-un, he believes his own Feldercarb. But anyway, okay, I'm digressing a little bit. But like I said, certain leaders, we need to look at their circle more than we need to look at the individual, because the individual doesn't have as much control as the circle does. Like in China, it's the party that rules, although in China we are kind of moving a little bit more toward a personality. With North Korea, it really is kind of the personality who rules there. In Russia, Putin is kind of his personality as opposed to his staff, his party, his parliament, and everything like that. So Putin has kind of made himself his own kind of little demigod there. So we need to look more at the man. But in other cases, we just need to look at the party, at the surroundings, and everything like that. So see, I digress. This is one of the nice things about the digest, is that I can kind of digress a little bit, and you kind of see what I'm thinking or what we're thinking at the DEFCON warning system. So it gives you kind of an insight as to how we think as well. So that's why I think that these digests are actually very, very valuable. So if you don't really watch these digests, I really suggest you do, although if you're watching me say this, you're watching the digests. Although we do look at the stats, and we do know that a lot of people watch the first couple of minutes and then they kind of drop off, I guess, because I'm a boring person or something like that. But we really do kind of wish you would watch, at least listen to the whole thing, because there's some really, really good information in here that you need to hear. And before I digress even further, don't forget to subscribe. That way you know when we put out these videos and things like that. So this time, however, we're releasing our analysis. And yes, I am kind of reading the article. So so if you haven't read the article, you're going to hear the article, and I'm going to go more in depth into it. So this will keep me on my train of thought, hopefully. This time, however, we are releasing our analysis to the public so you can see what we were thinking, as well as add these to your own thoughts. The public should make their own evaluations and not rely on the DEFCON warning system for any strategic planning. We're just giving you what we think. You need to make up your own minds. You need to protect your family as best as you think. That itching. We are just like any other intelligence organization, just like the U.S. intelligence organization, just like any government intelligence organization. We are making an educated guess as to what somebody is thinking, what they are going to do in the future, how they are going to react. It's all guesswork. And you could go to the CIA, or you can go to these think tanks, or you can go to any agency in any of the world, and I don't care what they tell you. I don't care how professional they are, and they've done this all their lives, and they've got stacks and stacks of research, and they're just really super fantastic, great at. It's all guesswork in the end, because nobody knows what somebody is going to do. They think they know what they're going to do. They've analyzed this. This is their hypothesis, but nobody knows, because nobody is in the mind of what somebody else. Nobody's in the mind of somebody else. It's all guesswork. This is our guess, and you can put whatever weight you want onto it. You can, take us for our word. You can just put this in the pile with the other stuff that you have in your, or you can just completely ignore us. Do what you want, but this is what we've done. This is what we do, and you could just take it for what it is. Place whatever value you want onto it, even if it's zero. So the difficulty with these types of analysis is it's impossible to not come across as political. And this is the reason why we kind of always backed away from making these public. And this may be the last one we ever do. If Harris becomes president because Joe Biden dies, because he's kind of old, we're going to make one of these analysis on her, but whether we release it or not, I don't know. It depends on what kind of reaction we get to these. Plus, it also depends on whether we think it's a public good to release these. But so like I said, the difficulty with these types of analysis is impossible not to come across as political. No matter what we say, someone will take it as either an affront to their politician or confirmation of their own bias. And like I said, you go back to the statement we released about Donald Trump just a few weeks ago. Some people absolutely agreed with us, and some people thought we just drowned their favorite dog. Politics in the United States has become so poisonous, it has become a religion. And now we are talking about somebody's God. So we're either committing blasphemy or we're venerating them. And I'm sorry that it's come to that, but this civil war probably in the future. I don't know, but I'm not going to go down that street. It's just it's gotten really, really bad. So this document is not intended to endorse or repudiate any person or policy. This is simply our analysis of what we see as potentially happening based on what we know of history and of the person we are examining. So if Joe Biden does something, and I'll say that just today, I'm recording this on January 25th, so it's not included in the article. It wouldn't be included in the article anyway, but on January, just a little while ago, the United States has rescinded the order blocking foreign powers from being involved in the U.S. electrical grid. This is a 90-day stop or 60-day stop. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but it's supposed to be a temporary stop while they look for something else, if there's even going to be a replacement. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, you make your own political decision. We're not going to say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. We're merely reporting that this happened. And from a a strategic point of view, you kind of don't want foreign entities into your power grid because the power grid is so important. So what they've done is they have allowed foreign entities into the U.S. electrical grid system. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Make up your own mind. Was it a politically good thing or bad thing? We don't care. We're just telling you what's happening. And whether you are happy you voted for the guy or unhappy you voted for the guy, whether you think he made a good decision or a bad decision, totally on you. We're just telling you what he did and what the consequences or the potential consequences are. Dr. Phil has often said, Dr. Phil, my wife loves Dr. Phil, said that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. If I behaved in a certain way over my lifetime, I'm probably going to continue behaving that way. So if I've done something in the past, odds are I'm going to do that in the future. However, for a president, that's not necessarily true. There's a big difference, a frightening difference, when you sit in the chair in the Oval Office, and it can make you rethink things. And that's part of our analysis. We have often seen that promises made on the campaign trail do not always materialize when someone wins the election. Some of that is because they just blatantly lied, because they want power and they'll tell you whatever you need to hear in order to vote for them, and then they'll just cast you to the side because you did your job, now go back being the peasant that you are and stop bothering us. That's what politicians say. Other times it's because political reality hits them, and they do have to deal with the opposition party who, just because they don't have the majority doesn't mean that they can't run interference. The Republicans saw this over the last 4 years. Even though the Democrats did not have majority during the first 2 years, they ran a lot of interference. It also didn't help that the Republicans were also running their own interference because of Trump derangement syndrome. But this happens even further in the past. When Bill Clinton was president and the Republicans took control of Congress, he had to make a lot of compromises. Ronald Reagan, he never had Congress, and so he was always making compromises with Tip O'Neill and his ilk. So it's a big difference when you're sitting in that seat. So just because so contrary to what I just said before, just because somebody behaved and acted a certain way up to the point they became president doesn't necessarily mean that's how they're going to behave when they're president, because that chair does put things into perspective. Joe Biden, the 46th president of the United States, is the oldest president, taking office at the age of 78. So he is up there. At that age, it isn't improbable that he will not survive his first term. In fact, even Biden probably does not believe that he will live out his first term. I kind of thought that he said he wasn't sure that he was going to, but I can't actually find the quote. But if you listen to some of his statements on the campaign trail, he has dropped a few mistakes where he called this a Harris presidency, and that could be because he's thinking he's not going to live it, or because he was just thinking of Harris at the time and his mind wandered, or who knows. But at 78, the odds are against him for surviving long at the end of his term. But who knows? Biden aides and advisors have stated, quote, if Biden is elected, he is going to be 82 years old and in 4 years, and he won't be running for re-election. So that was a statement by one of his aides and advisors. He's not going to run for re-election in 4 years. That's according to the aide. Biden has not said that himself. He's not publicly said he's not going to run for re-election in 4 years. He has stated that he wanted a running mate who can take over if he doesn't make it through his life. So he does understand his mortality, but he did not say he's not going to run for re-election. His aide said that, but not him. But another aide said he's going into this thinking, I want to find a running mate I can turn things over to after 4 years, but if not possible or doesn't happen, then I'll run for re-election. So he's kind of thinking about his own mortality. But again, the aide continued to say, but he's not going to publicly make a one-term pledge. So Biden also stated on the campaign trail, this will be a Harris presidency. I just covered that, though that could be attributed to a slip of the tongue. See, I kind of got ahead of myself in the article that we wrote. So like I said, he is aware of his mortality. Biden's mortality is going to be foremost in his mind. He will want to make sure he has a legacy in place before he must or is forced to leave office. There's a lot of talk about the 24th Amendment under Trump. Well, that also applies to Biden. If his mental faculties start leaving him, we did see that on the campaign trail. He is having trouble with remembering things, getting confused and things like that. That will become possibly more prominent over the next 4 years. Every president wants to make a legacy, so he may feel that he needs to get something going. He's in the first few days he's signed a lot of executive orders. He's done a lot of things. It's typical for every president, but he could be someone who sees time slipping away. With both White House and Congress in his hands, he has the ability to make much of what he wants happen for 2 years at least. Unlike Donald Trump's presidency, Biden's party is not out against him. Trump had the problem of his own party didn't like him because, for whatever reason, I'm not going to go into those reasons. There's a whole lot of theories out there and a whole lot of talk about why the Republicans didn't like Donald Trump. But that's not the problem with Biden. There are some in his circle where they think he's not left-wing enough. There were some riots over that, but for the most part, they are not working against him. Unlike when Donald Trump was president, his own party was working against him. So that's why the Republicans didn't get a lot done under Trump's term, even when they had the entire government under control, because his own party was working against him because of the aforementioned Trump derangement syndrome. Biden doesn't have that problem. For 2 years at least. The current party in power, the Democrat Party currently, has not done well in many midterms, and even in this recent election actually lost seats in the House. They had a certain number of seats. I don't remember the number, but they actually lost seats, and there was a lot of controversy on that because, generally speaking, you don't elect a president and lose seats. You generally gain seats and gain a presidency. So there's that kind of discrepancy. But again, the way elections work is that an entire state elects a president while only bits of the state elect House members, because states are divided into districts, and district elects a House member, and there's a lot more rural districts than city districts. So that's kind of why there were more Republicans elected to the House, but a Democrat won the presidency. This possibility that they could lose the Congress could propel Biden to take even more chances while he has firm control of the government. He's got 2 years where he's got a guaranteed passage of almost everything that he wants. If he goes too far radical, because there's some things that require 60 members of the Senate. There are 100 members in the Senate. There are 100 senators, 2 for every state. And some legislation requires not just a simple majority, but a 60 senators to pass. And the Democrats don't have 60 senators. They have 50 plus the tiebreaker vice president. When there's a 50-50 split, the vice president casts the deciding vote, and the vice president is a Democrat. She will always vote for the Democrat. So they have that. They're barely the majority of the Senate. And if some of the legislation they try to pass is just too radical, they're not going to get the 60 that they need. So he can't go too far left. He can't be too radical than if they had the 60 senators, but he's definitely going to get an awful lot done. So we are not going to see a return to the Obama years. For those of you who are worried that we're going to just see the Obama years again, that's not going to happen. While Biden served as Obama's vice president, that does not necessarily mean that Biden agreed with everything Obama did. There will be no apology tour. No bashing the United States. So remember the apology tour. That's where Obama went out and basically apologized to the other countries about how bad the United States was. It was really, I am going to avoid expressing my opinion on the apology tour. You've probably already figured out what it is just by my reaction, but I'm not going to say anything. DEFCON warning system only saw the apology tour as a weakening of the United States, but beyond that, we really didn't care that he went on the apology tour. Only that just weakened the United States in the eyes of other countries, especially their enemies. But there will be no apology tour, no bashing of the United States like Obama did. Certainly no first lady who announces that she was never proud of her country before her husband got elected. Does anybody remember that? How Obama's wife, Michelle Obama said, "I have never been proud of the United States as an adult until my husband got elected."
For the first time in my adult lifetime, I'm really proud of my country.
I'm surprised that the media didn't pick up more on that. But again, the media in the United States is very biased. If a Republican first lady said that, they would have been all over it. So the United States media, it's very difficult to, it's very difficult to take them seriously. It's very difficult to get any news from them because now it's all propaganda. And, if it doesn't make their candidate look good, they're not going to report it. If it makes the other candidate look bad, they are going to not just report it, they're going to exaggerate it. So U.S. media is very, very difficult to get actual news out of. So, but I've just tangent offed again. So despite the U.S. allies' hope otherwise, the U.S. will not take second seat to other countries. So when everybody was, one of the things under Trump was America first, and the allies really didn't like that because they kind of want to have a seat at the round table. And Trump really didn't see the table as round. He saw it as rectangular. Biden is not going to be sitting at a round table either. So England and France and all these other countries who were hoping they were going to have a bigger say in how the U.S. does things, that's not going to happen. Biden will still seek to be number one on the world stage. And the reason for this is because Biden is one of the last of the greatest generation, those who were around for World War II, though he was really born near the end of it, so maybe the term doesn't appropriately apply to him. So he may not be the greatest generation. But he certainly was, okay, let me go back for a second. He was exposed to that in that's how he grew up, in that was his childhood, those were his parents and things like that. So he still has that whole United States great country. He believes that we need to do things like, global warming. We have a responsibility and all these things, whether you agree with global warming or not. That's not relevant to here, but he does believe in the United States being great. So that's kind of why he's not going to kowtow like Obama did. But he certainly was exposed to the upbringing of that era, the greatest generation era. But this also puts him in his formative 20s during the flower power 60s and the radicalization at that time. So you kind of see why he's as left-wing as he is, because he was exposed to the left-wing attitudes of the 60s. And while he really didn't get that much into it, that was a major influence. So that's why you can kind of see why at his age he is still kind of that, a little bit of the flower power left wing. Due to his age, Biden will have hardened his beliefs and attitudes. What he carries with him now is unlikely to change. We all have had grandparents, we've all seen older people who have these very hardened attitudes. I was actually adopted very late into my family. And I don't say adopted in order to say I'm not part of their family. I'm actually very proud that I was adopted. I actually have my adoption certificate in my den, framed in my den, because, a lot of children wonder, did their parents love them? I know my parents loved me because I can prove it. I have a receipt. It was $500 they paid for me. I don't think of them as not my parents. When the names are called in heaven, I will stand with them. So going back to my original thought, I was adopted very late into the family. So my cousins actually had children of their own. So I was actually playing with their children, my cousins' children, and they were about like 5-7 years younger than I was. So I was kind of lonely during Thanksgiving, things like that, because I didn't want to play with. My cousins were too old, their children were too young, so it was kind of lonely at the Thanksgiving table. But anyway, those are my problems as my childhood traumas and things like that. But I also got to see how the older generation thought, because my parents were not just the generation above, they were 2 generations removed from me. And I got to see how they behaved and how my aunts and uncles behaved. And now when I got married, I got to see how my wife's grandfather behaved. He was very old, and grandmother, they had their own attitudes, and they were much harder. I saw my mom as she got older. She became much more hardened in her attitudes. That was a woman you just didn't mess around with anymore, because she wasn't going to take it anymore, because she was old, she's lived her life, and she's earned it. So this kind of happens to everybody, whether we like to admit it or not. And this is kind of where Joe Biden is as well. He's kind of hardened in his attitudes. He's not going to change. So whatever he's walked in with, that is what he is going to believe, and no amount of cajoling is going to change that. This attitude can be a disadvantage as he deals with others, especially foreign entities. We've all tried to talk to our parents and our grandparents who just won't listen because they know better. This is Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden as well. And I'm not saying that to bash on the guy. That's just human nature. We all get that way. He'll be much harder to convince, to compromise, to see things as others see them. While he does have a great deal of political experience, the age thing is going to work against him. Again, though, the big chair does have a way of getting people to see things in a different way. So he's not a rock, he's not a stone, but he does have that old age thing going against him, and he's going to be very hardened in his attitudes. Another problem Biden has working against him is his racism. Oh, no, we can't say that a Democrat is racist. He's a racist. He has certain attitudes about different races, and that is going to hinder him. While again, he is no Obama, and he doesn't hate Israel, and sorry to say this, and probably going to lose subscribers over this, Obama was a flat-out racist. And we are never going to solve the problem of racism in this country if we don't call racists racists. And it's not just white racism against blacks, it's black racism against Chicanos, it's Native American racism against this, and I can say that because I am a Native American. It's whatever race against whatever other race. We've got to be able to say that Oprah Winfrey is a racist. She is a racist. We've got to be able to say that Barack Obama is a racist. If we can't say that these people aren't racist, we're never going to solve the problem of racism, because racism is racism or it's not. Either it is racism to have a certain attitude about a certain race, or it's not. Either all racism is okay or no racism is okay. You can't have this piecemeal, some racism is okay, because that itself is racist. Okay, I've now gone off on my tangent. Let me get back on track, because I'm sure I pissed off enough of you. Biden is a racist. While again, he is no Obama. He doesn't hate Israel like Obama did. Obama just hated Israel. He does have certain attitudes about races. One can never forget, or some people conveniently forget, that most of his racist statements have been aimed at blacks. Most of them anyway. To quote Joe Biden, "Poor kids just as bright as white kids," unquote. That's a racist statement, and if you don't think that's a racist statement, you're a racist. Another one, quote, "You can't go to a 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent," unquote. That is a racist statement. This racism will carry over to his dealings with Israel, Korea, China, Iran. He is going to see Israel as Jews. Well, Israel is Jews. It's one of the few countries that is supposed to be racial. Go back to the Old Testament, and God said, this country is given to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I had to kind of include that, because it's not just the children of Abraham, because Abraham had another child. So it's the children of Israel. They weren't supposed to mix with other races. That's one of the only countries that's supposed to be racially pure, because God gave it to the chosen people. But he has certain ideas about Koreans. He has certain ideas about Chinamen, and he has certain ideas about Iranians, because he's a racist. He is not going to look at these people as individuals, as these people can have, this person can have this kind of attitude, and this person can have this kind of belief, and this person can have, he's going to look at the whole. And when you're dealing with countries, you kind of deal with the whole, because it's not possible to pick out Joe Blow over here is one way and Joe Schmo over here is a different way. When you're dealing with countries, you're kind of dealing with the whole country, because when you go to bomb a country, you're not picking out Joe Blow over Joe Schmo. You've got to deal with the country as a whole. But his racism is going to kick in, and he's going to believe that Koreans think a certain way and act a certain way, and Chinamen act a certain way and think a certain way, and Iranians act a certain way and think a certain way. Or to him, Iranians are going to be the turban heads, just because he's a racist. And those are the attitudes that he's going to come in thinking about, that he's going to have predefined attitudes about them, and that is going to hinder what he thinks. And I know all this, if you're still listening, is going to be extremely controversial. You're going to not like what I said. This is an analysis of the man. Just because we don't like to hear our God be blasphemed like that, it doesn't change that who he is. You go to any Klan member, and you know how they're going to react to certain races, because that's how they think. You go to Al Franken, or you go to, who's that guy on MSNBC? He's a big time racist, and they gave him a show on MSNBC because MSNBC is a racist channel. But you know how these racists are going to act, because that's how they think, and so these are the attitudes that Joe Biden is going to bring to the table with these other countries, because he has racist attitudes. And the only way we're going to be able to understand what Joe Biden is going to do is to understand his thinking. So I know it's very, very difficult to hear that Joe Biden is a racist, but he is. He's also a politician, so he's not going to be burning crosses, or he's not going to be hanging anybody, or he's not going to be doing anything like that. But this is going to affect his thinking, and we have to be honest and admit that is going to affect his thinking. Biden is not an isolationist. So unlike the previous 4 years, look for the United States to return to intervention on a much larger scale than it's been the last 4 years. This has been typical of both political parties, but for different philosophical reasons. The end result, however, is always the same. The last 4 years under Biden's predecessor, however, did see a reduction in that. That reduction is likely to end as his political party will want to be much more involved in the world. We've already seen that. He's already sent additional troops to Syria. There's not a whole lot, but he has started sending troops out, and we're going to see more of that, because that is basically typical of his party. It's very interventionist. The United States itself has this attitude of we need to spread the message, and this was the same thing that Russia had. This is the same under communism, the same attitude. We need to spread the gospel of communism. The United States, we need to spread the gospel of I don't want to say freedom. I'm not exactly sure that's correct, because the United States has kind of gone away from that. But whatever message the United States wants to spread, that's the message that they're going to spread. And so this means the United States is going to the manifest destiny. That was actually the phrase I was looking for. It's the United States manifest destiny to go out and spread the news, the good news of the United States, and whether the other country wants it or not. And so this has been the problem with the United States over the last history, over its entire history. But we're going to see more of that under Biden. Biden will probably continue a hard line with North Korea. This is in line with Obama's presidencies and Trump's. North Korea is celebrating a Biden victory, believing that Biden will move away from the hardline policies enacted by the previous president. They're dreaming. Under Obama, we came perilously close to nuclear war with North Korea. In fact, we did go to DEFCON 3. But in the end, it was Obama that blinked. He pulled back the bombers, and that did settle things down, but it did make the United States look extremely weak to North Korea and its other enemies as well. Biden is not looking for revenge. So he's not going to avenge the United States, well, I don't want to say humiliation. under Obama, but we definitely did lose face. Biden is not looking for revenge, but we will continue to see hardline policies with that country. Biden's statements on North Korea are hardline. North Korea, on the other hand, doesn't like Biden, even though they're hoping for a change under Biden, but they don't like him. Biden having slurred the good name of North Korea's leader, so they're kind of pissed off at him. I really want to stop using that word, but okay, give me a chance, give me time. I'm gonna try and stop using that word. Nevertheless, they see Biden as a useful idiot. And I know that maybe I shouldn't have used the word useful idiot, but it brings across what we're trying to say North Korea sees Joe Biden. They see him as a useful idiot, and they will work to see if he can be a pushover. Not going to be, but they're going to try. China also sees Biden this way as well, because Trump definitely was not a pushover, but Biden has made enough statements that China thinks they can, quote, work with him. Maybe another nuclear test is coming with North Korea. Certainly more missile launches, especially because North Korea, they don't like being out of the limelight. They definitely want the attention, especially because they're having harvest issues, crops, food. They're having another bad harvest. They're going to have a starvation. The winter is here right now. They should be having a lot of problems with that. They're going to be looking for more packages, more aid packages, and in order to do that, they're going to threaten more missile launches, more nuclear development, unless the world gives them what they want. Now, once the world gives them what they want, they're going to take it for the army, the military, and they're just going to continue developing the nuclear program because the world is filled with a bunch of idiots. And they keep trusting North Korea, and North Korea is just going to continue the nuclear program. Speaking of countries who understand the world is a bunch of idiots, look for Iran appeasement. In fact, that's already started, and Iran is salivating. Iran is looking not only for a return to the nuclear deal, but is looking for even better terms. Additionally, a bill is working its way through Iran's parliament, calls for the destruction of Israel by 2041 and for additional military resistance to the U.S. presence in the Middle East. Iran sees Biden's victory as a victory for Iran's resistance to U.S. pressure. They feel that they got rid of Trump, and now Biden will be a pushover. If Obama was I'm not going to go off on Obama. Obama's gone. Biden is not going to be an Obama in the Middle East, but he is already looking to renew the nuclear deal. And with North Korea, and the same with North Korea, Iran is just going to agree to the nuclear deal and continue their nuclear development because they want the nuclear bomb. And the world is full of idiots, and they're just going to give Iran what they want. And like I said before, Europe is just going to turn a blind eye until Iran has the bomb, and now they're going to have to deal with that. China as well sees Biden as someone they can work with. Biden doesn't see China as an adversary. As far as China goes, he may sell America's soul for cheap products. As far as South China Sea goes, it could go either way. Biden has talked tough about that region, and we've actually got a carrier moving into the region. But it is to be seen if he's going to follow through, especially with Taiwan on the table. How far is Biden willing to bend for China? China is someone he sees as, quote, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us, unquote. So that's where Biden's thinking is on China. He doesn't see China as an enemy, but with South China Sea, I was kind of surprised he sent a carrier over there. It's really kind of up in the air what he's going to do. Certainly it's not going to be like the last 4 years, but we do have Taiwan, and right now it's kind of a coin flip what's going to happen in South China Sea. But as far as China itself, we're going to see a backing off of the Cold War, the new Cold War with China, because Biden doesn't see China as competition. Israel is going to be a problem. There won't be complete abandonment, but Israel's lost a friend, and they know it. Israel may feel more isolated, more prone to react. There is, however, only so much they can do, reliant as they are on American military purchases, and ultimately someone who may back them up should war come. So Biden is not going to abandon Israel, and when war comes, it's going to come. The United States is going to be there for them, but not as much as an ally as they were under the previous 4 years. Biden is going to, like so many presidents before, he's going to try and play the peacemaker. And You can't play peacemaker in that area because there are people there who want to see Israel destroyed. Under the last 4 years, we did see a lot of Israel's enemies come to the peace table. Surprising, actually. But these were not hardcore radicals against Israel. Now let's talk Syria, let's talk Iran, let's talk Iraq, let's talk about these non-state actors, the Taliban, the others. There's going to be a war in the area, and Iran is going to drag Russia into it. As far as Russia, Biden is going to go old school. Despite any diplomatic overtures, he won't trust them. He is too old to change that. He's lived through the Cold War. He's seen that. And again, we go back to, I'm old and I don't change my attitudes. He's too old to change. But he may agree to unfavorable agreements and that influence from forces trying to pull him even further left. So there are factions in his party that are going to try and pull him even further left. Once Biden leaves office and Harris takes over, it's going to get even worse. So we're going to see less adversarial relationships with Russia, and that is to Russia's advantage. The United States under Biden is going to be much more relaxed when it comes to immigration, and documented people will resume inflow into the United States. This was never abated under previous administrations, but Biden was quite open about allowing border crossings without proper vetting, which can allow enemy agents to slip in undetected. I don't think I need to comment any further on that. If you don't control your borders, bad people get in. He is selling the United States out for votes. It has nothing to do with we need workers because they work the fields. I guarantee you that if the majority of these illegal aliens were voting Republican, he would build the wall himself. The Democrats would build the wall themselves. But because they vote Democrat, they want to let them in. This is all about changing the voting map. One other problem Biden faces is the mounting U.S. debt. It is unsustainable and puts the United States in a very bad position, indebted to hostile countries, China. And his party wants to drive the debt even more with nothing now to stop them because they have control of Congress. So every budget is just going to sail through, except for the magic 60 votes that they need. But the budget just exploded under the previous administration, and there's nothing now to stop it from just getting worse because the Democrats have already put on the table, we want to do all this ridiculous spending. Nope, forgive me. I shouldn't have said ridiculous. I just injected my own political opinion in there. They want to put all this new spending on the table. They want to spend for global warming. They want to spend for job benefits. They want to spend for infrastructure. They want to spend for a lot of stuff. And all this money drives up the debt. And the debt goes to China. The debt goes to other countries. And the United States is in a position now where I don't think it can repay the debt. Clinton was the only one who had administration that had a balanced budget. Trump didn't, Bush didn't, Obama didn't, and Biden is not going to. The United States is boned when it comes to the debt. There's no stopping it. Good luck. I'm at the age now where I just don't care. Send me as much free money as you want. I tried to tell you. You didn't listen. I don't care anymore. Do what you want. The state of Washington is now trying to pass legislation to increase the gas tax by 10 cents. I voted against them. They voted for it. Now when they come complaining about the price of gas, I'm just going to say, this is what you wanted. Now eat it. I don't care anymore. Bottom line, Biden is not long for the world, hardened in his attitudes, and will continue policies that will place the United States in a bad position, including foreign intervention. The possibility of the United States getting into conflict are higher under a Joe Biden presidency than they have been during the last 4 years, and I base that on the fact that the United States is going to intervene more in the Middle East, in other areas, because that's just what the United States does, and that increases the potential for conflict. South China Sea, Taiwan, we were kind of already going there. The Middle East is kind of what kind of made us lean in that direction, because the United States is going to get more involved in the Middle East, and it's just going to get itself into more conflict. Syria, Iran, We're looking at, don't forget, India, Pakistan. They're probably going to stick their nose in that as well, trying to play the peacemaker and just end up irritating. See, I didn't say pissed off, even though I just did right now. I said ticked off. The United States just can't stand not poking its nose in other people's business. And so that's what's going to get the United States into a higher chance of conflict. World war, who knows? It's just too many variables. Again, like I've said before, is there going to be a world war? Is there going to be a nuclear war tomorrow? No. In a week? Of course not. In a month? Nah. 6 months? Probably not. A year? I don't think so. But you notice as time goes on, I get more wishy-washy as to whether we're going to get that war because there's just too many variables. But as to getting into a conflict, the odds are higher with the Joe Biden presidency. Take that for what you will. You can agree with me or not. That's our analysis. Please let us know what you think in the comments. Come to our community forum. That is the place to make the comments. I know some of the forums, some of the sub-forums you need to register. One of the reasons we make you register is stop the spammers, stop the bots, but also it tells us that you are more serious about the comments that you're making than if you're just doing a flyby, knee-jerk comment. If you're taking the effort to register, it tells us that you're more serious about your comments. Come to the community forum. We try to read the comments on YouTube and Twitter. We are not always able to. Community forum, definitely that's where we interact. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Tom Sloaney Wolf, the director of the DEFCON warning system.